minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard, we will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30-odd minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Yeah! Welcome to 30-odd minutes. It's great to have you back. Welcome, oddballs. Welcome, everyone from every corner of the universe tuning in. We appreciate it. Want to say hello to the whole oddball crew on the couch tonight. Look at them. Andrew, Sarah, Matt, how are you guys tonight?
Doing pretty damn good.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Ooh.
Pretty damn good. All right. That's watch the mouth. It's a family show. If you guys are watching the show live at 30oddminutes.com, you can jump in the chat room. You can ask us questions. We'll pass them up to our guest. And we appreciate you guys being in there. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And you can email us at info@30oddminutes.com. Send us field reports. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. We'll sometimes read your stuff on the air. Last week's show sparked a lot of email, a lot of tweets, lots of other comments as well. Sarah, what did they say?
Yeah, it did. It was a really powerful interview. So we have one email. It's from Sheila Smith. She says, as a longtime student of parapsychology, I was moved by your interview of Mr. Quarantino. Man, you have to feel for him, so thank you for bringing that forward. I work with a psychologist on cases here in the SF Bay area, and we've discussed this in detail, some of the more famous people who try to ride on the coattails of this family, and it's disturbing and sad. I hope Mr. Quarantino can find some satisfaction or solace for himself through his new ventures. Anyway, I've been a fan of your work, Jeff, and your books, and of everyone on 30 Odd. So thank you again for the great interview, and hopefully you'll make it out to SF. Yeah, if you want to fly us out to SF, we'll come.
SF,
yeah,
for the vast majority of you who have no idea what Sarah's talking about, is
San Francisco. Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
I know I take it for granted.
Now we just allowed in the 99%. We had no idea. San Francisco. So thank you for the email. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, Christopher Quarantino Lutz, the Amityville story, was definitely a powerful, intense interview last week, and appreciate everybody watching that either live or on the download. So cool stuff, cool stuff. Matt, Andrew, you've weathered the hurricane. I'm glad to see you're both alive.
Yes, the chainsaw has gotten a lot of use.
Good.
Oh. No, that's just a clone. That's not actually Moniz.
Are you guys excited for tonight? Because this is an odd topic. This is something that I love. Topics that make you think, make you wonder, do we really know how the universe works? Do we know everything about our past, our present, and our inevitable future? And, you know, we've been going over this tonight. Are your wheels spinning already?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Matt and I were just talking about this about a month ago, this topic.
You know, right before the show goes live, there's a countdown, there's all this stuff. It's almost like a real television show. I swear, if you were here, you'd see
Almost.
That. Almost. Except these guys on the couch would not shut up tonight. I'm like, we're live. Shut up. We have to do the intro. So I know, let's get to it. I mean, seriously, let's just jump into this. Think about how far we've come since the Wright brothers flew in Kitty Hawk, their first powered aircraft in 1903. Just the last century or so. We have electricity everywhere. We've landed on the moon and have more or less mastered the skies with commercial aircraft. Just in a century. We have the internet, 24/7 satellite news coverage, cell phones, people living in space pretty much all year round. All of that in just over 100 years. Sometimes technology takes a quantum leap, and sometimes there are gaps that leave us scratching our heads. Were time travelers bringing back advanced technology to our ancient ancestors? Did aliens land and give us a technical edge at some point? Or are we just underestimating human ingenuity? We're going to explore all of that tonight on 30 Odd Minutes. Tonight's guest is a journalist and freelance writer who comes from a very technical background. This guy is all about cause and effect. He's the author of the brand new book, Out of Place in Time and Space, Inventions, Beliefs, and Artistic Anomalies that were impossibly ahead of their time. Live from San Antonio, Texas, please welcome Lamont Wood.
Woo!
Hey.
Lamont.
Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sending us a lot of great photos that we're going to be getting to, weird images. We're going to be talking about time travel, things out of place. Let's start with, and you get to this right in the introduction of your book, tell us about the two kinds of anachronisms, or the things out of place in time or space.
Well, as sort of a high concept, the things I kept running across that I use as examples in the book. I came up with the idea of the reverse anachronism. Now, the standard anachronism is like when you go to the movies, and the movie's about Rome, but the actors are speaking English. You accept that because you don't know Latin anyway. And you want to hear the movie. So that's sort of a non-threatening definition of anachronism. Well, I kept running across something I call reverse anachronisms. Instead of things depicted in the wrong era, such as actors in Rome speaking English, reverse anachronism would be something from the present that you find in the past, be a belief, knowledge, or an actual object that seems to belong to the present, but it shows up in the past. You'd think that would not be possible, but I keep finding them as I look around. Beyond that, if we have reverse anachronisms in the past, logic would demand that there are reverse anachronisms from the future here in the present. And oddly enough, I think I've found candidates for that, and certainly have found things that used to be from the future that now are in the present.
Right.
And we can get some example in a minute if you
All
like.
right. Well, let's start with a video example. I sent this to you. In 1928, Charlie Chaplin put out a movie called The Circus, 1928. And it premiered at Mann's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. And what we're about to show you, this video clip, and we can start rolling it whenever it's ready. There it is, Charlie Chaplin's The Circus. This was a video taken by Chaplin at the premiere. So this was not in the movie. This was not for film. This was for his private collection. Watch the woman behind. She appears to be talking on what some have speculated is a cell phone. This will repeat again and again. It'll get closer and in slower motion. So there she is walking along, talking on something in her hand in 1928. 1928 would have predated, of course, walkie-talkies. Of course, it would have predated cell phones, would have predated a lot of things. It looks out of place, an anachronism. Am I correct?
Definitely.
And what did you think when you saw that video?
My reaction to that is that, as we do in many cases, we are taking our modern visual vocabulary and imposing it in a setting where it really doesn't fit. And in this case, I look at that and think, boy, you young people are so lucky. You don't know anything about ladies in past eras with their fancy, often jeweled cigarette cases, which would be about that size, thin, about the size of a cell phone, just enough to carry maybe a dozen cigarettes. And she appears to be holding that up to her face to shield her face from the sun. You'll notice the camera is up sun from her, and the sun is apparently very low. And that is the impression I get from watching that.
Okay, but at the very end, it does look like she's talking. Matt, Andrew, Sarah, what did you think? Did you guys think we have something beyond just shielding your eyes? What do you think, guys?
Well, I personally don't even see anything in her hand.
Okay.
I think she's playing with her hat and is walking along the sidewalk talking to the guy that was in front of her, and he's not even listening to her. She's just gabbing and holding onto her hat as she's walking.
Sarah?
Yeah, it's way too hard to tell. And I mean, like Matt was saying, he's like, well, what do you think? I mean, it could be that she's talking to herself, for all you know. I mean, she could be a crazy lady as well.
Well, of course. And we know nothing about it. And there's no way we're going to know. That's the other kicker here, is that we can't go back. We have no clue who that person is and never will know. But this stuff turns up on YouTube. It's been seen close to 5 million times. So obviously there's interest in this particular clip as to what it might speculate. So pretty cool. Matt, I'm sorry. Did you have anything to add to that? Are you
yeah, I mean,
the voice of insanity?
Sure. She could either be crazy, talking to herself, or back then they also had those little jewelry box things that played little tunes, and she could be singing along to it. The early version of an iPod, a mechanical iPod.
All right, fair enough. Okay, well, we're going to see other stuff. I want to start with this photo that you sent us, Lamont. This is the Antikythera mechanism.
Antikythera, yeah.
Found on a Greek seabed in 1901. There it is. Check it out. Tell us about this device that dates back to at least 65 BC.
Right. That would be, again, the example of something that used to be an example, reverse anachronism from the future. It was found off the Greek island of Antikythera in 1901, and at the time they could not figure out what it was. It was just a jumbled mass of corroded bronze gears. And after about 100 years of scientific analysis and very close study and scrutiny of it, we can now see that it was an ancient Roman computer. Now that we are in the computer age and such things are in synchronization with our present. It's not the, when I say computer, it's not a binary programmable device, but the old style meaning of the word computer, where the programming is built into the design and the gearing. It was a device for reconciling the solar calendar and the lunar calendar, which we still have to do nowadays. As you know, like Easter is the day for that is set using the lunar calendar. But when you ask, what day it is on, then we tell you in the solar calendar.
Right, and so this device, pretty intricate. It's mentioned by some of the old Greek philosophers and things like that in some of their scripts, but then it disappears. Do we not see something this intricate for a while, or are there other examples that stay with us?
No. That device must have represented the accumulation of generations of skill in the making of precise gearing. Not only does it follow the planetary motions of great precision, but it includes what they call an epicyclic gears or planetary gears, which are equivalent to what you would find if you took apart the gear train, the transmission housing in your automatic, in a car with an automatic transmission. Mm-hmm. And those were unknown before the Industrial Revolution. But one showed up in this device that, as you mentioned, was on a ship that sank in about 65 BC. Julius Caesar could have consulted it. That was during his lifetime. But that skill went away. No one could have built something like it until in the last 150 years or so, I would say.
So this is one of the big issues that we have, right? I mean, how come only in the last 150, 200 years, Industrial Revolution really, we've come so far so fast, as we said in the beginning, from the Wright brothers at Kitty Hawk to now air travel is, a mundane, everyday part of life. If we had something that was this intricate 2,000 plus years ago, why didn't we have the internet in medieval, Europe? Why have we taken this long?
Well, the big difference between now, a couple of big differences. One, science is considered public domain, something done for the good of everyone. In previous eras, it was secrecy was the rule. Certainly, you didn't have the tradition of open publishing, and in fact, the publishing industry we have nowadays. In the Roman era, of course, they didn't have the printing press, and any particular skill was considered the private property of the person who had the skill. That was that's what ensured his employability. He would train a few apprentices who would support him in his old age, but that's as far as it went. The other thing is you got to remember it's a fairly new development in modern culture that if you do something spontaneous and new that lets you get rich, that's okay. In most cultures and in some nowadays, the idea of not maintaining your place in a social order is heresy, and there are plenty of cultures that still believe that and hate us for it right now. And you can fill in the blank. I mean, I don't have to tell you which ones.
Sure, of course. Okay, Lamont, we do actually have a question for you from our chat room. Sarah, please, do tell.
Actually, it's more like influx of comments. I had no less than 3 or 4 people say that they already figured this video out of the woman. They say,
all right.
And they pointed to all these video clips, which I can't pull up right now, but videos, pictures. It's a hearing aid device. Apparently, it was debunked, and it's this hearing aid device that was used back then during that time period that would make sense.
Right.
Like some sort of hearing amplifier, so she can talk to someone like a certain distance away.
Okay.
They're all telling me we should have researched this. So
no, I did see
that.
I know
bring
what
it
you're
up.
About.
Yeah.
No, sure, fair enough. Yeah, I actually did see it. If you watch the complete YouTube video, and we'll put a link to it from our website, you can see that there are links to hearing aid devices that do look almost the size of a cell phone that would amplify sound. But the one question that goes against that, and that may be the case. Let me flat out say that we're not saying this is a time traveler or anything else. However, she does appear to be talking when you see that last bit in slow motion, yet no one's around her. So
right, and why is she in the movie at all?
Well, it's not a movie. It's a setup camera at a premiere. So it was not exactly a film. So yes, it could be debunked, but there are people that will tell you that hey, that doesn't totally hold water because she wasn't talking to someone necessarily, unless it was just out of earshot. We don't know. Anyway, great comments. Thank you, folks, for being so vigilant. No, it's good stuff. This is what it's about. It's about the debate. That's what we don't have answers. We don't know. Okay, so we talked about publishing, bringing ideas to the world, and of course that's a huge boon to mankind. And speaking of publishing, we've got this. This is the Voynich Manuscript. circa roughly 1420. And tell us about this. Crazy, right? An unknown language, unknown plants.
Oh, yeah. Of all the things in the book, this is the one that really stumps me, and I don't have a rational explanation for it. It is dated to 1420. It's about 240 pages, hand-lettered and hand-illustrated. Being in 1420, that, of course, was before the invention of the printing press. But the lettering is from an alphabet that exists nowhere else, and the language that you can derive from it is, you can see that it follows rules, and it falls into mathematical patterns. You can analyze it various ways, but those rules and those patterns match no known language. There are words that are used in certain parts of it that are not used in other parts of it. Apparently, they're part of the vocabulary of that chapter of the subject. Some of the leading lights in the field of cryptography in the last century have tried to decode it and have not come up with anything convincing. And as far as I can tell, no one can prove that it contains any information a third party could extract. Yet it is laid out like a book that you're supposed to read. And then beyond that, there's illustration on almost every page. And the illustrations appear to be about something, but when you look at them closely, they really don't depict anything. There are, for instance, illustrations of botanical knowledge of various plants, but when you analyze them, they don't match any known plants. There are illustrations of astronomical knowledge that, when you look at them, don't match anything known to astronomy. There's weird plumbing. There's women without clothes on who don't seem to be doing anything. None of it makes sense. Some people say that the simplest explanation for the fact that it's gibberish but falls into language like patterns is that someone took gibberish and encrypted it. And the act of encryption would give it the patterns that we see. And I say, yeah, if you wanted to fool the CIA for a couple days, yeah, you might do that. I don't think that was an issue in 1420. The other possible explanation is that it's the product of someone suffering from what they call OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Such people have been known to sit down and invent their own languages and write whole books in it. But the problem with that is that when you take the resulting material, you can usually analyze it and tell what the guy's native language was. He didn't get that far, from his original language. And then there's the illustrations, which come close to depicting something, but never quite do. You think eventually you'd depict something because it'd be easier, to base it on reality. So the whole thing does not make any sense.
Right, and of course, it couldn't be depicted. And the fact that if it's a hoax, to what end could it be a hoax?
Yeah.
Okay, so we looked at this beforehand, and Matt on the couch had some thoughts. Matt, do share, please.
Well, I've been studying religions, in particular pagan religions, for many years. Back in that time, the Inquisition was in well force, and people that were considered witches back then would create their grimoires, and in order to thwart the powers that be, to be charged, they would invent these languages and illustrations, in a sense, to be able to teach themselves and other people about it so that they wouldn't be caught. In other words, this was a template or a manual or a grimoire made by somebody that they were to use later on or to be handed down to somebody.
So the possibility that this is a grimoire made by someone who might be hunted during the Inquisition, possibly, but still it's never been deciphered. And that's quite a clever person that would do that.
This is true. You'd think it would
especially when your life's on the line.
In some European language.
Right. Yeah, no, interesting stuff. And you know what? Again, 1420, we don't know much more about it other than it's a head scratcher. And of course, it leads to all kinds of wonderful, wild speculation, and we love wonderful, wild speculation here at 30 Odd Minutes. Who doesn't? I mean, alien language from the future, from the crazy distant past. What could it be? Because I think humanity has a need to almost find an answer, even if it's just an individual answer. If it doesn't resonate with everyone, it doesn't matter. For someone to say, yeah, that's just from the thousands and thousands of years ago. Now I feel better. It's something from a leftover culture it's their answer, even if it isn't the universal answer. And that sense of need for control, I mean, we've seen it on conspiracy shows and things like that. But that is a great element to your book. Okay, let's head into space here and check out a moon of Saturn. This is Iapetus. This is discovered by Cassini. And here's what's so interesting about it. Cassini noticed that it would appear and disappear. Now, why did he think it was doing that?
It would appear he would be able to see it when it was on one side of Saturn, and it would disappear when it moved around to the other side of Saturn. And he decided that probably meant that one side of it was much darker than the other side. And when they got better telescopes, they were able to confirm that was the case. And we thought it was nicely explained until we actually sent space probes out there. And we discovered that was only the tip of the iceberg, literally. According to modern space probe photos, there's a big black spot on one side, as if there was a huge explosion just over the surface of a lot of soot and covered this fairly large round area. Okay, so far so good. But within that round area, there appears to be something like a garden wall that almost follows the planet's equator almost exactly in a straight line, but only within that dark area. Now, I can't come up with a rational explanation for that. I mean, can't come up with an irrational explanation for that. If you want to talk about ET, extraterrestrials, okay, maybe they did it. Why? What's the point, you know?
Yeah.
We are surrounded by mysteries, and this is one of them, basically. We don't have to invoke anything else, talk about Bigfoot and witches or whatever. They're right out there in front of us.
And it's in our neighborhood, our galactic neighborhood anyway. I mean, that's the cool thing. Okay, we're going to move through some Renaissance paintings here, because this is something in the UFO circles, they come up again and again. But before we get to UFOs, check this first painting out. This is circa 1460. And this is interesting because look at the toy. This is the Christ child. Look at the toy in the Christ child's hands. Lamont, tell us what we're looking at here.
It's a pull-string toy helicopter, flying toy helicopter, which is kind of odd because it was painted in 1460, and the helicopter, by conventional historians, was invented about 1906. Apparently, this is a trend I kept seeing when I wrote the book and was doing research. Children's toys are too frivolous for serious attention. And they're out there playing with toy helicopters, and no one knows about it. I also discovered the Greeks and Romans had steam-powered toys, never did anything else with them. They find wheeled toys in tombs from Central American civilizations that did not themselves use wheeled transport. Rather than sit here and say, gosh, they were stupid, I think the correct response is to wonder what we should be paying attention to. What are the kids using, that we maybe shouldn't dismiss as frivolous.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, so, but it looks out of place. But you're saying, because Renaissance paintings wouldn't really cover toys, who knows what else would be out there that we got lucky with this one.
And the other thing, it didn't really come into sync with anything we would pay attention to until the last few decades. It was hanging on the wall of that museum for probably centuries, but only in the last few decades did anyone really pay attention to what the Christ child was doing.
Right.
What he's doing is playing with a flying toy helicopter. Now that we have helicopters, they got our attention.
All right. Let's move from helicopters out to space, and this is going to get juicy here. This is a painting of the Madonna, the Nativity of Jesus with the infant John the Baptist, circa late 1400s. And of course, what we're most interested in is in the sky over the Madonna's shoulder, her left shoulder, your right if you're looking at it head on. There's that object in the sky, and there appears to be a man on the rooftop there, right by her shoulder, pointing to it. UFO buffs will tell you this is proof that UFOs have been visiting us a long time, and it even made it into artwork. And there's lots of examples, and we'll show you one more in a minute. But the reality is there's other paintings like this that depict this. What do you think we're looking at, Lamont?
In fact, there are tons of paintings like that, and they're mostly a result of us taking what I called earlier our visual vocabulary and imposing it on people who had their own visual vocabulary. What this is a painting of is a very fancy illustration of a Bible school lesson. What that guy in the background doing is pointing up at the heavenly host because he is one of the shepherds tending his flock, being overwhelmed by the sight of the heavenly host who is telling him of the nearby birth of the baby Jesus. Now, how are you going to depict the heavenly host or the divine presence? Well, this artist put something in the sky that looks like, to me, like a rowboat with golden oars coming out of it or something. And to me, it doesn't seem very, I don't know, splendiferous, but it apparently satisfied whatever the visual vocabulary was of the people paying his salary, basically.
Right.
Remember, this is all commissioned work by churchmen who knew exactly what they wanted. The artist is not going to slip in something.
Sure, and this is what we were kind of debating earlier. UFO sightings. We are UFO buffs here. UFO sightings go back a lot further than just the 1940s. They go back centuries. I mean, they were documented in the 1630s in North America by Massachusetts governor, and they go back a long, long way. Is it possible?
Alexander the Great.
Alexander, right? Sure. I mean, and if you want to get really crazy about it, in the Bible, wheels of fire in the sky, chariots coming down from the clouds, those kinds of things. Some will say is religious metaphor. Others will say no, they were just talking about an actual UFO sighting. Is it possible, maybe, that this thing in the sky looks out of place and is interpreted, of course, as a religious sign, because that's the bag of tricks you go to when you encounter something you just don't understand. So could a priest, could a even higher clergy see something and want it in the painting because this is obviously a sign from above? I mean, do you accept it as a possibility, or do you think? Well,
I accept it as a possibility. You can't prove a negative.
Right. Okay.
And
fair enough.
if they did see something in the sky, they did, and maybe they tried to depict that. But again, you have to realize that this does rather closely follow the Bible story throughout the rest of it, and that is what they're doing here.
Right.
And if they took liberties, it was depicting what was in the sky rather than what is depicted in the Bible.
Right. Okay, we have one other picture I just want to bring up real quick, another disc in the sky. This is the glorification of the Eucharist. This is circa 1599. And again,
no, this is the...
no, I'm sorry, you're right, my bad.
Baptism
Baptism of Christ,
yeah.
1710. Forgive me, you're correct. Thanks for keeping me on point here. So again, another disc in the sky, shining down.
But if you, in the high-res version of it, when you look at that disc, you see there's this little white dot below it.
Yep.
And if you could... I assume your resolution isn't that good, but if it is, because when I wrote the book, I had to buy the original version from the museum in England. That's a dove, such as is described in the Bible as coming down, the Holy Ghost descending like a dove onto John the Baptist, Jesus Christ. So there it is. That's what they're depicting. So, and up in the sky, you have this divine presence is shown by something round, which is the common way of doing it since Dante's trilogy.
Right. Okay.
He described this, but anyway, keep going.
No problem. So we have a lot of religious symbols. Real quick, I want to get back into space. The moons of Mars are quite an enigma. You write about them quite a bit. This is Phobos, the monolith on Phobos. Talk to us first about the monolith. We only have just a couple minutes left. The monolith, and then why these moons shouldn't be there.
The monolith, it looks like the top of a silo sticking out from the ground. Or maybe it's a very symmetrical, large rock. But there are other rocks in these pictures, and they're all like small and are not stuck in the ground. Also, around it, there are, which you can see better in the original version, they're not only craters, but anti-craters, little blisters, as if there are other things buried in the ground around it. Now, as I point out in the book, the moons of Mars, their orbits are too perfect. They're almost circular, which you wouldn't expect from objects that were captured from elsewhere, which they had to be. And also, their tilt is orbital inclination almost exactly matches Mars's equator, which you would also not expect from something that was captured from elsewhere. Right. But that's too perfect. If they're not artificial satellites, they ought to be. So who put them there? Well, you guys have a good imagination too, and I'm not going to stop you from employing them. And and I go into some detail in the book saying what I think, but I have no basis for thinking. So,
right on. Lamont, thank you so much. We have run right out of time. I appreciate you being with us. Folks, until next time, please do stay odd. We will have links to Lamont's book on our website. See you next time. Thank you. All right.